Welcome back to the most professional StarCraft 2, where I'm incredibly excited to introduce the Red Protoss for the first time in far too long. In the top left, it's the Shield of Iron. Its stats. Up against the most challenging opponent, especially according to himself, the final boss. It's Dark. A best of 3 PVZ that not too many years past could have been the grand finals of any tournament. You wouldn't be the least bit surprised to see these two. Dark has maintained that status, but stats. Not too long ago, he returned from his military service, but only recently has been finding more and more success. So if you want another Protoss to take up the mantle, to grab their shield and hold back the Zerg, or if you want to see Dark rip it apart, it'd be awesome if you could like and subscribe. And Jimmy, what are we... 1,266 likes on this video, on this cast, on this epic series. Might even title it that. Not very original, but effective. And I'll cast another one. And I'll probably do it anyways. But hopefully you've had a good day so far, and hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better. Yes, it's 2024, and Dark versus Stats is back on the menu. I am very interested to see what flavor of Protoss Stats has been favoring. Now, of course, the starting bits are the same as usual. Oracle comes in. In fact, doesn't get even a single kill, I don't think, but takes a whole bunch of damage, and the Queens will politely yet firmly, and possibly lethally, damage it on its way through. But this part of the game is almost required. The Oracles, in order to kind of keep tabs and keep control of the Zerg, whereas the Zerg doing their best to do the opposite, continually expanding, more creep spread. There's really no significant opportunity unless you're willing to gamble it all on an all-in, which occasionally, especially Dark, will favor. But so far, the respect is mutual. We have a Twilight on the way. Three more gates? That is an odd number, and I don't just mean mathematically. For this timing here. 2 more drones down. The Queen's a bit slow on the protection detail. A quick lair out of Dark is quite conspicuous at this timing, especially considering he doesn't have a Roach War in here. So we'll see. Oh, it's a German taxi build indeed. Overlord speed in production. Quite a conspicuous choice. A whole bunch of Zerglings. It looks like he let Stats build up his third. Shark around with those Oracles. Look for an opportunity. Baneling Nest. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Is he gonna just do Baneling drops? No, he's gonna bring the Queens. That doesn't mean he can't use it for the Baneling drops. Just to be clear, in case those of you enjoyed the newest balance patch video, that patch is proposed. It is not live. It is not currently here with the extra little bit of Overlord speed or Dropper Lord speed. That is proposed. But maybe Dark. Well, this build really isn't out of his wheelhouse. So a slight buff to it maybe in the future. But right now, well, this is a bit awkward. Brenda, is that... No, get me, get out of the car. Oh my God. I don't... Meanwhile, chasing down the Oracles with the Queen knocks out one, but Stats is standing his ground. Blink is not done. I think underestimating the power of the Queens and the Zerglings here. And the whole knitting crew is out in front. And now Stats pretty desperately falling back. He's lost 7 Stalkers and 2 Oracles for a whole bunch of the Zerglings. Transfuses the Overlord. Actually, oh, I don't know if the Queen got out of it. Will be taken down midway, but 5 shield batteries are in production. Stats taking this seriously now, but the Banelings will force the issue. Dark has 48 drones behind, which isn't a great economy, but it's good enough to follow it up. Beautiful placement on the stasis, but Dark is able to defuse the situation. All right, another Queen gets targeted down. More Banelings rolling in, looking to blast their way past the shield batteries. Indeed they do, trying to connect to the Stalkers. But the Queens just don't have the DPS here. There are no upgrades for either side. And Brenda, why are we on our own? How does this keep happening? Shut up, Susan. Just keep fighting. Well, the queens suddenly stranded. 4 more probes went down, but the Shield of Ire holds strong. And the Blink Stalkers will chase them down dark with a welcome back to the DSL here. And Stats says, thank you very much, I'll take it. So the queens are all gunned down. Dark is not droning. He's building Hydras. He's essentially relying on Stats overcommitting to a counterattack. This is now Dark the poker player. Just spamming Hydras. And he has really no opportunity. If Stats sits back, if he figures this out, and I think Dark taking that 4th hatchery as kind of a bait into maybe a stronger attack. But Stats is making those Blink Stalkers worth it. I want to note a key difference is Stats filled in more gates and didn't build a forge. He did sort of a middle-of-the-road production here, which allowed him to get enough Stalkers in order to defend, but does not give him the later game potential of upgrades or having more gateways of production. So, walking onto the creep here is a bit of a dicey endeavor, as Dark, the Hydras, are quite a strong counter in general. Stats right now has only essentially mass Stalkers. He was going for Adept Glaives, which he's since canceled here. I'm not sure if he was thinking about an all-out Adept play, but Stats puts up a wall. And the Zergling, some water balloons will take it out eventually, but the choice is Storm, as well as +1 ground attack. Dark is still sitting at only 56 drones, finally adding a few more on, but a hard wall. Stats is just going to lock down that base entirely. I think he realized with the Hydras out, he can't know exactly Dark's economy, but he has to know. Taking out 7 queens and 100 Zerglings so far, as well as Dark going for that early aggression with Overlord speed and the German taxis there, named after Lambo, who first popularized the build. He knows he's in a good position to essentially fill out his unit composition. There's no real obligation to attack into a superior army. There's nothing to be gained, unless he could win the fight, which is very much in doubt in this scenario. As overall, it's easier for Stats to get to the next level of tech than it's going to be for Dark in this tough economic situation. He's now got 69 drones, which is a nice amount for mid-game production, but he's going to need more to support the lurkers. And another part is Stats already had much of his production, his infrastructure online. He's now got 9 gates going on 10, star gates going on Fleet Beacon, +1 going on +2, and even charging a bit extra with those zealots. Immortal in production. How many robos? Just the 1. Dark with some zoning spores. I think mostly 2 zone out observer. A Baneling drop thrown in as well. So definitely a little bit of a different sort. A similar, it's familiar, but it's not the same. As Stats was so focused on unit production. Look at the supply. He's got a slight lead, literally by 1 supply lead, but at this stage, something. And rushing a mothership as a tactical option. I have to assume that's what it's for. He hasn't started any carriers here. I think he added on, what, 1 more Stargate? He's got 2, so if he wants to go carriers, the option's there. And building the mothership, not in the main, but at the natural, where it's less likely to be scouted. I don't know how intentional that was. But the mothership, I think MaxPax recently showing off that it really is a more tactical support option rather than a fighting unit. It's never really been a fighting unit. It fights with strong words and an embarrassing lack of ability to kill anything. But ever since that early aggression, really, since Dark was pushed out, now there is a risk in what Stats is doing. He's allowed Dark to survive, which means he has options. Dark has a tendency to take very difficult situations and somehow throw them into chaos and come out on top. So right now, not sure what so many overlords going for. Maybe he will try just a straight up overlord drop. Operation Overlord indeed. Up to that northern corner. Looks like he's gonna drop lurkers behind. Can morph the overlords up there as well. The carriers have arrived. There is no spire for Dark. Now without a spire, there's a timer on the lurkers. Eventually the carriers will be too much. But right now there's 18 lurkers. Mothership on the field. Banelings headed towards the main. Here we go. Lurkers towards the third. Storm to hold the wall. And the cannon's just going to keep detection here. Shield battery overcharge keeps things intact. Dark being stuffed on one side. Mothership gonna help protect. Tactical Nidus out of Dark. And the lurkers are still working their way through. A difficult position to engage. The warp gates being sliced here. But yanking out Immortals. It gets the Mothership. Another one. Get over here. Time Warp, though, will slow down from the grave those Hydralisks. Only 2 carriers in support. And the lurkers, but the storms might be able to knock down one of the lurkers. Or one of the carriers, but the storm softening up a lot of Dark's army. Dark now has much more money in the bank. Well, not much more. That's overselling it. But a comparable bank at all is not ideal here, obviously. Pulling back with the Templar. A Nidus at a very conspicuous location actually manages to get it behind the lines. Dark is breaking through the defenses. Lurkers will burrow at point blank here. And gonna start slicing through the Stalkers, but that gives an opportunity for Dark to come through the center. Targets the Nexus, and he's gonna take it out. And Dark has knocked stats back to not 3 bases. There was a 4th. But Dark is now expanded to not 5, but 6. He's got a 2 base lead. Only a few more workers, but stats is on thin ice here. He needs to keep his bases alive. He's building up that carrier count. Dark still only has Hydras and Vipers for anti-air defense, which, until you get the Spire with Corruptors, you can't really deal, at least not particularly effectively, with large amounts of carriers. But the Immortals are bashing through. Yanks in 1 carrier, knocks it down with the help of the Spore Crawlers. Nidus will emerge into the main, uncontested. Now, there's nothing in the Nidus. I don't think Dark necessarily expecting it to get anything done. Oh, a bit awkward there. Filled it up there a bit late. There's still vision at the back corner. Stats hasn't been able to clear it out yet. But more lurkers moving in. Mothership joining the fray here. Looking like a juicy target potentially for the Vipers. But feedback and a storm. That Templar getting everything it was worth before being taken out. More Vipers in production. Without the Vipers, it becomes difficult to dismantle this unit composition. And stats is holding. He's lost 2,000 less minerals. And they're about even on the gas. Oh, but the lurkers are caught unawares. Brenda, where are you? Why is there no creep? The creep spread has been pushed back and really not been a focus ever since the great slaughter of the queens. And more Zealots gonna kill some of the drones as they transfer to the right side base, but the majority of the army headed towards the left. Nidus at the back. And still an Oracle here to defend. Another Nidus that will actually pop up. But Dark not really with anything to follow through. A bit awkward there. Stats comes back to defend. And, well, Hydra's finding a fight. They both keep partitioning small groups of their army in order to try to find more Dark than Stats, but in order to try to find an advantageous fight. But it's Stats who's able to take out the Queen of the sort of the Spine Crawlers. Well, the backbone of the defense at the third. Meanwhile, Stats' army catching some of the Hydras with Zealots out in front. Carriers looking for an opportunity. The Sporist here drives him back, but eventually the Stalkers will chew through the spines. The Lurkers will respond. Stats deals with the Nidus in the main. There's no detection, of course, on the left side. The Lurkers eventually deal with the Stalkers, but the Gateway units being thrown away to carve through the defenses and soften up these locations for possibly a follow-up attack. Another Nidus worm at the back is Dark, incessant. The carriers have not found an opportunity to deal with the Overlords, and the Lurkers are still holding the line at the front. But Stats actually has more money in the bank. The difficulty will be attacking in or expanding past this point, but that's kind of true for both sides. Takes out an assimilator. +3 flyer attack. Finally, the carriers will deal with the overlords that we're spotting for the Nidus, removing another angle of opportunity from Dark. What a game. This is like a sword fight here. Not a boxing match like we sometimes see, not a chess match, but they're both cutting at each other, but no one's been able to land a critical blow yet. But here comes the Mothership, but not really enough support. Well, the lurkers are being softened up. I don't even think there's detection for it here, but it's not needed as the storms are on point. And now, of course, there is. With the Immortals coming up, a few Zealots came in, killed a couple drones, but Stats with 6 Immortals on the ground and like 8 carriers in the sky. More lurkers, though, in position. Even some infestors coming out, but what for here throws in a fungal. Be able to yank in one of the carriers, make that 2, and the Viper's still intact. The hatchery is taken down here. Target firing, a fungal, microbial shroud actually very helpful in this scenario, reducing the damage from the interceptors, and the Immortals getting pin-cushioned by the Hydras and eviscerated by the lurkers underneath. Dark has lost the base, but he overall wins the fight. But he expends his entire bank in trying to refill a supply, and he isn't able to do so. Stats has not rebuilt, but he has the money. I think Stats right now kind of debating, what do I want to rebuild? He's actually skipping rebuilding Zealots or too many Stalkers in favor of getting Archons, in favor of getting Immortals. He's getting another Mothership. It's 300, which is about the same, actually a little less than the carrier. So if it does start the fight, if a time warp is on point, it does force such a strong response. It appears that Stats deems it worth it. Though he did cancel the Mothership. Oh wait, it's finished. Never mind. I take it back. He was actually building, I think, instantly after. But again, we're gonna fight in the center with similar armies as we've had for the last 10 minutes or so. The Mothership, get over here! But that's one way to start the fight with the I don't think that was worth it. I'm not one to judge, but that seemed like kind of a waste of a money. He rebuilt another one! 4th Mothership of the game! Here we go! 11 probes down. Just at this base to the lurkers? Maybe. But the infestors, microbial shroud. A potential option here, though doesn't help against the storms. Dark has done all of this without really using that spire he built a while ago. He has 2 spires, actually. He has +1 flyer attack done. But Stats actually needs to do something soon, as Dark is starting to pick apart the army here, which is incredibly hard to do against the carrier Templar. But Dark has managed this fight so well. Another Mothership on the way. The Tectonitis at the front. The lurkers. Oh, there's not that many storms. Just 1 or 2. And the lurkers are weathering them. A small counterattack, just a few Zealots, is going to drag some of Dark's units back. But he takes out the Nidus to the north. Infestors are running through cannons, which is certainly not ideal. But it looks like Dark is going to try to end it right here. Mothership is nearly done. 5 infestors on the way. The banks are near even. The Zealots actually took out the base, which puts a lot more pressure onto Dark. The Zealots really did not... that shouldn't have happened. Down goes another carrier. The Nidus to reinforce. Both of them expending a lot of resources for interesting support mechanisms. The Cyber Core taken out before +1. It's just +3 weapons and +1 shields on these carriers. I guess the armor isn't too important here. Is there detection? Oh, it escaped Nidus, but he targets it down. Parasitic Bomb on the Mothership, but a lot of the units aren't able to get into the Nidus. And Dark ends up losing a huge amount. Stats realizes that there's no detection. Wow. And he's able to use... Wait, how many carriers is that? There are 10 carriers! Another Parabomb, though. will soften up the carriers even more. What a fight. 20 more Hydras on the way. They're both running out of money. And at some point, carriers themselves are going to struggle. Yanks at a couple. Gets more. Has he bitten off more than he can chew? Or can he stomach it? Down goes the Mothership. Archon's underneath. Carriers trying to work their way through. Microbial Shroud is used, but the anti-air seems like it's evaporating. But there's more Hydras in reserve. It's still unclear. Stats running out of money here, but the storms on the... Fungal tries to catch some of the carriers. Stats is rebuilding. He has that base to the left side. Dark is also starting to run out of minerals. The Stalkers have been holding that bottom left side and keeping Dark from being able to expand there. But they're pummeling each other down. The supply count's dwindling, and the income as well. They're both about even, but at significantly less total income than we were looking at before. They're both looking at maybe 1.5 bases of mining. Yeah, 800. Well, because he pulled the probes away. These two. Stats, by the way. Stats, I think, coming in as the underdog. But right now, he's hanging with Dark. Dark, if you go Corruptors, you're locked in. If you build too many Corruptors, you can't fight on the ground. You could maybe try Broodlords, but Dark making it work with the Hydra Lurker. On a much smaller map, by the way. Gets the feedback, but the Abduct had already gone off. Gets another Archon. The carrier count is so damn high. Mothership number 5 is in production. Which I think is a new record, by the way. The Queens and the Hydras. Karen, are we doing this again? This is like the 6th time this game. I don't... Meanwhile, the carriers. Dark is trying to throw this into a base trade scenario. There's almost no energy left. Uses Microbial Shroud on the Lurkers to keep them alive for longer. Wow, the Interceptors do nothing. I think they can't see the Lurkers is the problem. I don't know if there's any detection. How many observers are on the field? There's just one. I'm not sure if it's with the army. Not sure how relevant that is. But Dark took out Stats' well, Stats took the center base. Another... something went down. 10 Niduses have been used. Stats has retaken the center. He's down to 22 probes, but he's got 141 to 108 army supply. He's about to have Mothership number 5 come on down. The Infestors, the Hydras. Dark is attempting... he's taken the right side, but that's currently being isolated by Stats' army. And Dark has taken the left, but I believe there's a single Stalker plinking away at it. 4 more Queens on the way. 167 supply across the board. Exactly the same. Though Dark is more invested in workers. Remember this started with a Queen drop? And now, 20 minutes later, Mothership number 5. There are more mothers in this game than on the Jerry Springer show. And honestly, much more entertaining here. You see, no, don't do it! Don't do it! Is it worth it? The massive recall into the main! And he goes for the entirety of the tech! Dark heads the other direction! Stats gambles everything! He can recall back to defend! He can gut the tech tree! And he can come back home! Will he go for it? Does he try to defend this last base? I think it would be a mistake to recall on that Nexus. Stats seems to agree. But there are more bases to fall back to. But he has to do it soon. It's pretty much now or never. Now is the choice. The Hydras. The main base is gutted. Oh, all right. And a few stragglers left behind. Might have Brendan, not again. But he's trying to chase down the Hydras. But the Warp Prism, the accidental flank, calculated. 420 IQ as the Warp Prism with the storms. Absolutely eviscerating the army, annihilating the Hydras. The Queens actually amusingly make it home, but almost nothing else does. It appears Stats has outmaneuvered Dark in game number 1. It now just has to power through and claim victory. Mothership number 5 was absolutely the ticket. Is there detection for the lurkers, though? It doesn't matter. There's nothing to stop the carriers. And in game 1, just game 1, Dark is defeated by the Shield of Ire with an on-brand style of Protoss. And that is one of those incredible games where I really, I need to stress. Like, there are all sorts of games. We watch so many games here. Many of them featuring Dark. But that's one of those where I think neither player really made mistakes. Yeah, sure, you could have microed a little more perfect in any fight. They didn't make mistakes. It was how they went about solving the problems ahead of them, or the problems even. And Stats put himself in a position to take it home with a huge... It was a calculated risk, but it paid off. The Mothership to the main, that could have backfired. There's so many ways that could go wrong. And then setting himself up to defend it home. What a game out of Stats. And Dark... The amount Dark... By the way, another... Dark dragging it back from down 10 workers. An utterly failed German taxi build. Like, the German taxi absolutely crashed into a bunch of Blink Stalkers and was shot to pieces like a Godfather scene. And he still held on and made a real, like, not only did he make a real game of it, there were multiple points where it looked like he might be able to take it home. One of the most back and forth, despite the armies, Protoss versus Zergs I've ever seen. And now we go to game 2, Oceanborn. Stats is back, is what I'm saying. I don't care. Well, I do care a little bit how the next game or two go. But that is the style of Protoss that got him his nickname, the Shield of Ire. Where it's not just about playing defense. Sometimes the best defense is a good offense. And then teleporting back home to defense, but still. And can we talk about... I mean, no one's going to stop me. They can't stop me. Like and subscribe. 5 motherships. All right. But it's 300, which is expensive. But it's less than 2 carriers. And the fact he kept building them, I think he was fishing for that scenario throughout the entire game. That timing, that opportunity was what he was looking for. And he eventually, after 5 tries, found it. Damn. All right, here we go. Gets 1, gets 2, and gets a strongly worded knitting needle into the orange HP. We'll see if there's any split. I really liked Stats' take on the mid-game there, too. With how he locked down some of his bases. He went for that kind of 5-gate blink, which is usually, it's like 2 gates up into 8 gates. Like, there's a big swell of production. Protoss usually relies on that swell of production to, when they get their 3rd base online. But if Stats had waited until he could get, like, 6 gates or go for +1, he very well would have died, or may have died, to the Queen all in. So, I think it was... I don't know how much of that is playing Dark, and how... Oh, we're not doing the German taxi build this time. This one is the Soul Stroll. Yes, named after Dark. The Queen's about... Oh, do you guys have joint pain, or is it just me? Karen, we all have joint pain off of creep, all right? This is ever since the accident. You know, you remember the war. And, the Brood War... Shh. Shh. And, well, here we go. The Queens are marching. This time quicker. Oh, he's actually going for the Spore. How many oracles does it take to kill a Spore? Well, 3. He loses 1. But, okay. Oh, buckle up. So, in the stat... Oh. Shield batteries in a Dark Shrine. The Dark Shrine is solid 104 IQ play here, as there is no lair. If stats can hold until Dark Templar, which is a significant if... Really? Again? We got halfway across the... Ah! Well, so the queens will come back to defend. As stats went for the base trade there. At least something resembling a base trade with the oracles. With this many shield batteries, stats will cancel a couple, realizing that Dark is gonna do something that could ostensibly be called macro. If you squint hard enough, it's called macro, okay? So, oh my.
What a save!
Well, again, Dark has attempted an all-in of sorts, found some success, but Stats has done enough counter damage and kept him at bay. He has not been stingy with the defense. He built a forge early, which I think was intentional for cannons in this case to defend. Well, now we're going to, not the same, but the similar theme, but a completely different way of playing it out. It's not going to be Hydras this time. It looks, there's a small chance of swarm hosts here. I'm not convinced on that. Infestors themselves might be pretty good against the blank stalkers here. Against Stats, who is going for a more conventional ground toss. +1 blink on the way. That Nexus, nope, the sentries there. Looking to see if we can bait out a force field or two. Not gonna happen. Templar Archives. Is he gonna go Nidus Swarm Host? Is this madman deciding that Swarm Hosts are the way? All right. Sir Richard and his merry band of brethren. Ricky and the boys. Depending on who you ask. And definitely a different tactic, but the Nidus will still be the method for it. Road speed as well. A dozen swarm hosts. I think, yeah, with the Nidus revelated there, I stand by that terminology because revealed is not nearly as explanatory as revelated. Tagged is another colloquialism for it. But that means that he can see anything that went into the Nidus. It's not going to be much of a surprise as the Locusts come in. But the Forge and the Twilight are vulnerable conspicuously here. And he takes it down before charge. And now the Forge +2 is gone. And Stats invested so much in static defense, which is incredibly impotent and remarkably ineffective. Same thing, but against this exact strat, I think this is Dark. Seeing the sheer amount of cannons and batteries and saying, I know how to deal with that. There's a Hydrodon on the way now. The force field's a bit preemptive. Another Nidus over to the northern flank, but Dark is up 60 supply nearly. There's some Dark Templar being warped in, but the escape Nidus, they all slip back in before anything else is able to be done. There's a couple DTs awkwardly placed at the front, but the Locusts drop down, and they will. He doesn't even cancel. Stats is gonna try to get something done before the next wave, as this isn't getting any easier. Dark has already, like, getting the Twilight, the +2, and then getting a Nexus. He's got both sides of it. He's taken away Stats' future economically and technologically. All he has to do now is deal with the army. And he's gonna do that by rushing into Hive Tech with lurkers. There's already enough army supply. Like, Dark is nearly maxed out. He can fill in whatever he wants at this stage. Eventually, that's going to be Hydras and Lurkers. But for now, the Roachling is doing just fine. Knocks down the force field, more a matter of principle than anything else. Swarm hosts just wandering their way across. Stat's going to try to hold. The Oracle is in a conspicuous location. Might be able to take out some of the Swarm host. Storms attempted here, working around the edges of the Roach Ravager ball. But the Zergling's still coming through. Stats will retreat back. Good positioning will keep them alive, but the Swarm hosts were able to drop the Locusts in and starting to rip apart the natural. Down goes some gateways, even some cannons going down, not getting any of the economy. And the Storms are starting to soften up the Roach Ravager. But Dark is trying to trade out this army. He's trying to get rid of it. He wants Hydras, he wants Lurkers. Obviously, you don't want to just lose your entire army to Storm. But losing 20-30 supply of Roach Ravager fighting heads up against Stalkers? Sure, fine. That's a good trade there, especially since so much of his army supply is committed into Swarm hosts, which essentially you either keep them alive or you throw them away. And at this stage, they've been worth it. But Stats has done an absolutely incredible job of keeping it together. Usually playing defense against Swarm hosts is a losing battle. And it still is. But he's managed to take this base, I think. Yeah, he's easily... The Storms, they will recharge if he keeps the Templar alive. There are the Lurkers on the way, but Stats has made it up. He's climbed up to 100. He's drawing the army supply a lot closer to even. And there's the Mothership. The Mothership is becoming Stats' signature unit. In fact, I think we're finally exploring it as a tactical option here. I don't just say that as like a fancy way to sell merch. No, it's not some tactical underwear, but instead a tactical support unit. Kind of like the Oracle is, but as a spellcaster. It's not there for damage. It's there for pretty much everything else. But the Oracle is also kind of there for damage, so it doesn't really hold up perfectly. And now Dark is like, you haven't killed enough of my roaches. Please kill my roaches. I don't want to just kill them myself. I need to build lurkers. And immediately is building lurkers with all that supply that Stats so graciously freed up for him. But Stats is nearly maxed out. He doesn't have much in the bank. He's just now making the transition into Stargate. But he has every opportunity. If he's able to deal with a Locust wave and then match the lurkers on the field, big if. But he's got a path to victory here. And it's a hard-fought one. Another wave of locusts. Dark, incessant. And did he rebuild a forge here, or was that there the whole time? Either way, might want to reconsider it. The lurkers are zoning out. A wall of cannons is just too late. Or is it? There's only the one Overseer here, and I think Dark realized that. There's the active cloak. And the Overseer not quite in position to deal with it. Dark actually can't see the base itself. Yes, there is just the one. The Stalker's on the other side. Don't want to fight directly into the lurkers, but he's able to zone out of the base. Doing a great job so far as Stats in defending. And he may be able to take out... He forces a Locust wave. Brendan, not again! How many times? He forces yet another Locust wave to be wasted. And Stats, he lost a lot. But he's held for now. The Swarm host Nidus is all over the place. Dark has a lot of options, and Stats, very thin ice. Oh no. Oh no, he has to recall. He takes this very seriously. Unfortunately, I think that recall was a miss. Wait, he doesn't have... mistimed it a bit. The Locust wave wasn't quite ready yet. The Queens! Wow. Very tanky. This is a lot closer of a fight. The stasis on the lurkers. Interesting. Oh yeah, okay, well, that did not go great for the Stalkers there. More lurkers making their way in from every angle, it seems. Some Colossi trying to get involved. Needs to use his cloak if possible here, but the Overseers are in position. The lurkers, the overseers are there. Storm coming through. Whittles down some of the lurkers, but the vast majority are still intact. And another wave of lurkers is heading in. Closing in from a 270-degree arc almost on this base. And Stats is desperate to keep it alive. He can't lose this base. Especially without doing any sort of counter damage. Oh no. A bit out of position to deal with it. He has to run the probes away. He's running out of options in general. There's... Zealots get something. Stalkers working on the queens. Time warp on locusts. Which, oh, the Archons are surrounded. There's a not full health Archon there. A hatchery is killed. Stats expands. He chooses to give up his Nexus to keep his army alive. And he's able to get one hatchery on the other side. Dark only has 55 drones right now, which is intentionally. He's really focused on having the largest possible army supply. But, well, Stats has kept a lot together here. He's hurting. He really... If he had one more base, this would be a much better game for him. As he'd be able to kind of pick and choose his fights instead of letting Dark pin him up against it, but... Oh, beautiful stasis! Prepared for this, even though the overseers were there. The lurkers, of course, need to burrow before they attack, walk right into it. Stats has bought himself even more time here. Plus 3 weapons on the way. Cannon, shield batteries coming online. But the Vipers have arrived, and there's not that many Templar to deal with them. Get over here. Absolutely yanks a Colossus. The Swarm host bringing in a Locust wave. And Stats really gonna have to... Well, the Locusts are dealt with. The carriers... Stats is getting overwhelmed here. He's kept the Oracles alive for so long. He's kept them as part of the fight. The Colossi, helpful. Double feedback invalidates the Vipers. But the Nexus itself is in range of the Lurkers. It's just too much. And Dark is chewing through. Stats is preserving his army over everything. He's slowly working on the creep. There aren't that many queens. Yeah, 0 queens, so accurate. He's trying to find that fight against the Lurkers. It's happened before. It can happen again. The Lurkers are remarkably fragile, especially when unburrowed. And right now, Stats is trading economy to keep the army he's already built alive, which, you know, makes a very simple amount of sense when you put it like that. He's maxed out nearly. You don't need more money if you keep all these units alive. And if he fought the army up against his base, he'd very likely lose more than a Nexus's worth of resources. So, he's playing the highest percentage play that he has, I think, at the moment. But Dark is not leaving him with very many options. The Nexus. Oh, the Lurkers are closing in. God, Stats has kept those Oracles going. The storms across the bow. But the Lurker count is so damn high. The Nidus is closing in. And... Dark... I don't know, it feels like he has so much. The army supplies are near even. The Mothership is still alive, but the Lurkers are now at the natural. A Nidus in support. And Dark is just keeping him busy on so many fronts. The Locust coming in. The Templar. He can use the cloaking to protect this base, potentially. Storms to soften things up. But now, the issue has been forced. Stats has to decide. Does he go forward or does he go back? This is such a tough angle to fight. There is no easy one. Dark has seen to that. Time warp. Mothership gets involved. I mean, I think he was going to do that anyways. The Immortals actually doing a great job here. Are there enough? Stats dismantles it, but he loses the Nexus. He loses 36 probes. The Swarm Host coming out one end, Hydra's going in the other. On this Nidus. But Dark, I think, has reached checkmate. Though awkwardly, there's nothing to deal with these Zealots. Okay. There are 47 Hydras on the field. Which is something to deal with these Zealots. Dark is able to take game 2. Stats really made him work for it. But, wow, what a game. Again, Stats with an impressive defense, but Dark did not let up. He never, both these players, sword fight is becoming more and more, I think, of an accurate description. Because they're not shying away from each other. They keep trading attacks. But this time around, Dark is able to cut a little deeper. Which brings us to the decider. Already an incredibly long best of 3, even if this next game is a cannon rush or a proxy hatch ending. Which... well, game 3 will be, as so many times it is, on Site Delta. Which it feels like is our neutral map. No race seems to be put out by playing here. And it ends up being the map that survives the full veto process, even in best of 3s. So here we are. God, they're both playing so well, and it feels like they're playing each other specifically too. Like, it's not just Protoss versus Zerg, but it's Stats versus Dark. Dark knows that Stats is a conservative player. He will sit back and defend. So, he doesn't fight into that defense, but he fights around it. Whereas Stats knows that Dark is a bit of a stubborn player, where he will go for the lurkers. He will keep throwing the Nidus. He doesn't want to just sit back. He wants to get the attacks done. So Stats was gambling on catching Dark out on the map with that army. And it almost worked. But Dark always had one more thing. It feels like Dark got the momentum. Like in Game 1, Stats kind of got the momentum with his defense. Game 2, Dark was able to take more map control and just ever so slightly work with it. I really think that initial Swarm Host wave, getting Charge and getting the Twilight and then +2 attack, set Stats' upgrades back like 4 minutes. Because you have to rebuild the Twilight. Maybe don't have to rebuild the Forge, but you have to start from nothing. Oh my, and the Zerglings get in. Uh-oh. Oracle's about done, though. Very quick Oracle. We'll light up, deal with this. But he has to waste the energy, unfortunately, but I think still a win for Dark either way here. Even if he doesn't really get probes. Especially, he might not even kill all the Lings, which... typical. Though it did cost Dark, it's the opportunity cost. He could have been building drones, but instead, he opted for the Lings to slip by. And the Stats still has plenty of probes. Whoa. Though some have to be pulled to deal with the Zerglings. Lucille, where are you going? No, we're not again. We can't just do this every time. Well, the Oracles will get in because the Queen's a bit out of position. An Adept in an awkward spot here. 6 drones dead, which is definitely worthy. 9! That's too many. That is a straight-up mistake. I think for the first time, I can point out a straight-up mistake. Dark, those queens should not have been out of position. There should have been a spore on at least one of the bases. That is way too much damage for 2 oracles and maybe a adept or 2 to be doing. And that will set Dark back, and this time there's no counter damage. There's no, like, killing the 3rd or forcing a bunch of batteries. That's just straight up advantage to stats. Especially coming in with another round of adepts, which will force the Zerglings to respond in just another situation where it's going to be difficult for Dark to really get any counter damage done. A rush to Templar Archives for stats. He sees the +1 melee on the way. Is he actually going to respond with Storm? Or is this just for Archons? Either way, still a good... Oh, I think he lost 1 Oracle to the Queens. Now, with how Stats has played so far, I wouldn't be surprised to see Storm. Alright, moment of truth. He knows it's going to be mass Zergling, as there is very little gas. The Evo chamber was upgrading super early. It's almost certainly mass Zergling. So having access to those Templar, potentially Archive, he just boxes in his mineral line. Dark is at 65 drones. Adding on more, I think, after he sees how well positioned Stats is, like he's not breaking it. He might be able to deny a 4th base. But Storm is on the way. Stats will only merge into Archons if needed. I love that. He's already got his Templar somewhere. They're well protected. He can merge if he needs to. But, if not, then he can wait out the Storm and use them that way. So either way, it's a win for Stats here. And this isn't Hero. There's an Adept on hold position. Changeling will scout the whole base. We'll see the Templar Archives being chrono boosted, which is quite a giveaway. Even if he didn't suspect it before. But Dark! Is he gonna try Multas? Feels like a bit of a desperation move. He is up against... obviously there's a Stargate, but... you need to be building units in order to make use of it. And like... or just a rush to Broodlords. Wow. Okay. This... yeah, he's got a Bentley nest. This is almost certainly a rush towards Broodlords. Trying to outright counter the ground army. Haven't seen a single Broodlord. In fact, haven't seen a single Spire unit throughout this series, despite multiple being built. But this time around, Dark is switching it up. Not going to try for the Lurkers, but instead, a bit more air superiority. As Stats has been able to take control of the situation with the carriers. Though he does build Mutas. I do think this will end up in Broodlords. This is Dark trying to kind of bait the hook here a bit. And it very well could work. 7 Mutas. I'd be very surprised to see more than that. He's got the hive done. This will buy time and prompt a worse. Oh my god, an Ultraless Cavern. Adrenal Glands on the way as well. Blink Stalkers moving forward. How many Zerglings on the field? 62. 36 more on the way, reaching triple digits here. Stats has locked down his... he's got stasis, he's got batteries, he's got cannons, he's got Templar. And the Mutas will fly right by. Greater Spire and Ultra Cavern on the way. We're rushing essentially directly to the late game here. Dark is maxed out. There's no defenses. The Mutas will serve their purpose well, which is forcing a response out of Stats and doing a surprising amount of economic damage, keeping him busy. Right as Dark is going for essentially an anti-stalker, anti-ground composition. Baneling speed conspicuously late here. But Dark is able to get up to 84 drowns. 84 drones against stats is 74 going on 78 pro. So both of them. And the Mothership. I love it. I feel like stats is educating here today. We've seen other players use the Mothership in various ways. But stats is truly, honestly, the Mothership has been nerf buffed, changed so much. Oh, the Templar, oh, the Archon merge, on point. That, both in cost and effectiveness, it's the price of 2 oracles. So, for that, when you consider it like that, I think it becomes more, it really doesn't deserve, in my opinion, its kind of feeling as the ultimate unit anymore. Which is neither here nor there, but it has its uses. As a cheaper, but more low tier. I guess instead of being like a tier 5 unit, it's like a tier 4 unit now. Still, you can only have one on the field. Still, it costs a ton of supply. Still, the most expensive direct unit that Protoss can, well, carrier, if you count all the interceptors, is kind of more expensive. Whatever. The shield batteries everywhere here. Multiple stasis wards. But Dark is going to test the defenses. He's got another Spire on the way. An Archon takes the wrong path. An Adept in Solidarity next to it. But here comes Dark. You can see on the map. Just hitting everywhere. The Muta's up to the north. Ling Bang. Roaches and Lings. He's trying to trade out some of the supply, but for what? Look at Stats' setup. The Mutas are still working. The shield batteries are still not out of energy, though. 3 Ultras on the way. Tightness plating. Dark Did he forget it? Yeah. He didn't start Chitinous Plating until after he already started the Ultra, which I think is a bit of a mistake there. But Dark is able to take out the 5th base. Ultras are on the way. How many? There are 4 Immortals, 6 Templar, plenty of Archons as well. And a Burrowed Ling. It kills the Pro. So, both of them playing, well, stats is... And the Zerglings get in, though I'm not sure how much damage they're going to be able to do. Well, it's a bit of an awkward fight. Gets an Immortal. Another... Stats is unable to get a 5th base, whereas Dark has, well, more than 5. I believe 7 over there? Has been uncontrolled expansion, which is kind of ideal for the Zerg. Broodlord's on the way. Not that much gas in the bank for Dark, though he's getting more and more here. He's now mining off of, I believe, 6 bases of gas, which is pretty ridiculous. Oh, Ultrons popping out of, like, nobody expects the I don't know if it's a good idea, but it's a great idea. Walking through the stasis, invalidating the defenses. Actually, it doesn't even trigger the stasis. I didn't realize that. But, you know, I'm not convinced. Well, the Ultras are just chewing through the main. Nobody expects the Ultras. It's like, how do they even fit in there? Let's not worry about that. And with the help of these 2 Mutas, the risky Lisks here, just chopping their way through. Hello? Stats is not responding to the Ultras chewing through the main. He's gonna get the fleet beacon. Hello? What's going on here? Eventually the Ultras, he will respond. It looks like he's gonna burrow them, yeah? Gonna hide the Ultras. There are 82 Zerglings on the field, and most of them are headed towards the 4th base right now. He's gonna get the Templar Archives with the Ultra. There's still an Ultra burrowed in the main. The Stalkers will box out. There is an Observer. Looks like he wanted to try to escape there. And the Broodlord count grows back at home. But Dark has lost a lot of gas. Well, you know what? It is a lot. It's twice as much, but only 3K, so actually not that much in the grand scheme of things. His army right now isn't even that gas. Where is all his gas going? He's mining 1,600 gas a minute. Well, some Infestors, Banelings, upgrades across the board. I think the upgrades are actually where the majority is gone. As he has 3/3 and now working on +2 flyer and +2 ranged attack. The melee attack is maxed out. But here comes Stats with a response. But the Broodlords! He built so many. Like, that's just far too many. There's barely enough anti-air here to deal with 4 Broodlords, let alone 14. Banelings rolling in. And to the north as well, the Ultras and Zerglings tag teaming and chewing through the mineral line. Stats is crumbling on both fronts. Has to warp in some Stalkers to defend, but he drops 30 workers. And now it looks like Dark is looking... Dark is going to turn his army against him. Does he have Neural Parasite? No. Okay, Dark realizing it at the same time. That seems important, but Burrow is done, obviously. No Parasite is on the way. Stats maintains his bases. He can rebuild the probes. He actually has a decent amount of money in the bank still, and he's maxed out, so... Oh my god, that's so many. I think he just used a creep tumor to trigger them. There are a dozen Broodlords. Okay, I guess they just look larger than they are. Nidus in the main, dealt with. Nothing in there. So Stats, again, has prioritized keeping his army as whole as possible, even if it means sacrificing some of his economy. We'll see if it pans out. But the Templar, in an awkward position, actually gets some good storms across the Broods, but losing 4 Templar and not really killing anything is not ideal. We see a rare +3 flyer attack upgrade and +2 flyer carapace as well. Gonna be near full upgrade Broodlords momentarily, including the 3/3 melee and carapace on the ground. The Stalkers on the left flank. Stats has done a good job of keeping at least something over to the side to keep Dark honest in every game so far. And now we're in an interesting scenario. I think Stats just realized he lost his Templar archives to the Ultralusks in the main. Infestor Broodlord, hello! Dark, my old friend, with the oldest trick in the book. A lot of things have changed since Wings of Liberty. Infestor Broodlord is no longer the singular ticket to success it once was, but is still potentially the best option in the late game to maintain both ground and air superiority. A recall, including the Mothership. Another counterattack, just keeping him busy. 13 more probes dead. He's killed 62 thus far, and counting. 5 more probes in production simultaneously. Stats trying to find the Broodlords. Will he just blink up, or will he blink out? He finds the Broods, blinks away. Immortal's caught. There is no... Well, there's the total recall out of the Mothership. And he is getting cornered. I think he's going to use it here. As this is quite an awkward scenario. But, yeah. He recalls out with the Mothership to the front. And now Dark's Broodlords are on the wrong side of the map. And there will be plenty of opportunity. You can't put the Broodlords in a Nidus. Big oversight on that one. And that means Stats might be able to outmaneuver them. Another fungal. Just chaining it together, but it doesn't do particularly much damage. Gonna use the active cloak. The Zerglings are still working through, but Infestors and Queens are not the most high DPS army composition. The Winterstalkers over the top. Another army of Immortals, and the Broodlords are caught between both. The Broodlords can't decide which way they want to go, and that means they're gonna go nowhere at all. The Ultras show up, but the Immortals put them down immediately. And underneath, the Infestors. 6 Infestors have died. I think most of them in that last engagement. And this time around, Stats has taken out multiple bases. He's taken out key spellcasters, but he's struggling to mine minerals. Whereas Dark, on the other hand, still has money in the bank. What does his army composition look like? He's got a dozen Broodlords. And while they weren't in the fight that last time, if he can bring them to bear, these two, like, legitimately so even. All these games. And this time around, it felt like Stats got an edge early with the kills on Dark's units, but Dark has kept him so busy. Stats, though, using that Mothership, and the feedback's popping full energy infestors. 0 out of 5 on Yelp. The feedback is perfect. And now there's no infestors over to the left flank, which is a bit of an oversight that Stats is going to exploit. The barriers holding the line on those Immortals. The Zerglings chewing through, but the Blink Stalkers over the top. The Immortals living up to their names until at least a few more Zerglings work their way in. The Immortals stutter stepping, blinking out, but it's gonna be enough without the infestors to hold things down. Almost gets it, one more hit. He gets it. The Immortal with its last shot. But Dark is struggling to pin down the army. He still has the money, but he hasn't really been able to do anything on Stats' side of the map in a while. Which means he has 5k gas in the bank. They're both continually fighting, but also mining more than they're losing. Which means they're continually building these banks. Stats is getting +3 shields. The Shield of Ire maxing out. Which is such a rarity, such an expensive upgrade as well. Because it technically covers everything, all the units, all the buildings. We'll see if it's enough. And now it's like a reverse of Game 1. In Game 1, Dark was dealing with carriers with only ground units. And now Stats is dealing with Broodlords with only ground. Which is kind of the opposite of conventional wisdom. The Immortals holding the line. Banelings just rolling every which way. Mothership shows up, recalls to this nexus. Broodlords again heavily out of position. They did take out the base to the top right. But Stats, well, is starting to really run low on the minerals. Dark is not doing too much better. Does he have the army to deal with this? Dark has 78. Another thing is Stats seems to always have detection where he needs it. The burrowed infestors are looking for an opportunity to maybe neural a couple Immortals, maybe get, honestly, even some Templar. Neuroparasiting a Templar and feedbacking the other Templar. We now see them expanding to each other's bases. It's unclear whose base is whose at this stage. It's whoever can take it, really. The drones, hoping very much the Observer doesn't stray too close. Will survive for now, but Stats is working around the corners. Dark is going down the center. And the Broodlords will move to defend the top right. The Ultras, there is no recall here. The Mothership, and now we're going into a full-on base trade. The Ultra is going to be hunted down. The Broodlords are nowhere to be seen. A Nexus has been taken out. A few Zerglings are split off to protect the retreat of the Ultralisks. But 2 bases will be taken down by Stats. Only 1 by Dark. 2 Lurker dens on the way. I don't think that's an accident. That seems intentional. Both. Wow, they're so even. Stats is switching into carriers at the exact same time as Dark is switching into Lurkers. They're both making a dramatic shift in tech simultaneously. As it seems like we're going round and round here. Thing is, though, Stats is out of minerals. Dark hasn't spent his money. He's actually banking up to get a bunch of Lurkers, which means his army is weaker than it could be at this exact moment. But it's impossible to tell that Stats is so low on money, as he's just continually so aggressive. He actually pulls back the Observer there until the Mothership starts tanking the Spore. Little details are everything right now. Another base gonna go down. The Nidus in the main will be chopped up. Observer survives for now, but takes it down. Fungal. There's still Adepts alive? Like, has he lost Adepts? Only 4 of them. It's not, maybe he warped in some more. There's 3 Adepts. I think they've just survived this whole time. Same with those Oracles, which kind of gives you an indicator of how well Stats has been able to keep his army alive. Another Nidus using the burrowed drones. Assimilation successful. Uses a neural parasite. Tags the army. Dark finally kills one of those Oracles. The burrowed drones unleashing a Nidus in the bottom left corner. Is there anything in it? The Lurkers will be revealed for the first time. Broodlords catch some of the Templar. Very valuable Templar. And the army going to be a bit disjointed, recalling back to defend. He actually deals with the Nidus. The Lurkers moving in. There is detection, but here come the Ultras. The transfuses are good, but I don't think they're good enough. He needs some Zerglings to cover. And moving forward, there's no Lurkers at the back here. The Infestors don't have the energy. And the drones are still burrowed in that corner. Dark is out of gas. How did... Stats has turned it around. Dark invested everything in a Lurker switch. And then has not been able to keep the Lurkers aren't doing it. The Lurkers, I think they were a bit of a gamble here. The other option was stick with the Broodlords, but I think, well, Dark needs this attack to work. Stats can't know how broke he is on the gas. As this army is about as gas heavy as it gets. 5,300 invested. A huge amount of cannons, expending a lot of that mineral bank. His Stats. Ultra's looking for an opportunity. Stats is looking to outmaneuver the Broodlords. He's got most of the army on the other side. The Mothership with him. Mothership can recall forward, or he could just bring the entire army back. I think the recall is on cooldown from defending that back right base. Gonna split. Trying to deal with the Lurkers here. Some Immortals underneath. Time Warp going to be used. No Lurkers done. Dark moving forward. Ultras are cleaned up. I take that back. It's not Dark, it's Stats moving forward. But both sides clearing up bases. But the Tempests, there's no anti-air to contest them. Though they take a lot of shots to kill the +3 armor broods. And the Tempests come out just in time. And will start pin-cushioning the Broodlords. And there is no response here out of Stats. The Stalker pulls back the cannons in the bottom left. And Stats may have to retreat to that base. The Queens! Why are the Queens here? He recalls the Tempest forward. And the cannons will hold the line against the Zerglings. And now Dark is faced with the proposition of defending his own main. The Zerglings, a single Ultra. But the cannons, the bulwark here, should be enough to hold the line. There's multiple observers. The tech tree is being cut down. Down go the spires. Down goes the hive. The lurker dens have already been taken out, as they were right next to each other. And Dark is rebuilding in the top right corner. He's just giving it up. Even some Overlords gonna go down. Both sides have lost so many pylons and bases and supply that they're not able to max out without rebuilding. But the Broodlords are still intact. The Zealot charges forward. A bit of a mistake there. A recall home. It's not everything, which is incredibly awkward. I think a bit of a panic recall. He kind of missed it. Well, he can bring the rest home with the Mothership recall. Momentarily. How is it? It's dead even supply. Almost dead even army supply. How many Corruptors? There are 6 Corruptors, 10 Hydralisks. And those are 3/3 Corruptors against completely unupgraded Tempests. Those Corruptors will wipe the Tempest out of the sky, given the opportunity. It's still a dead even. This is one of the closest games I have ever seen. But a Fungal could make that completely different. Catching some of it. Looking for another Fungal, trying to change it. But he uses the Warp Prism to micro back. And there's no detection out of Dark because he lost his lair. I don't think he has any Overseers. If he doesn't have any, he can't. With no Overseers, he's relying on Spores and Fungal for detection. I don't know if this is what's left of the army from the main, or if he recalled the rest out and there were still a few stragglers. The Mothership, no, they actually was fighting Hydras. But Dark has, well, what a game. Wait, a Fungal, and a chase down. Active Cloak, Broodlords raining down. Stats has the money in the bank now. It's on Dark to change the paradigm. He needs to do something. What tech does he even have? He has a spawning pool and a Hydra den and no lair. He's gonna lose his base to the top right. I don't know how many times that has happened. Are there banelings? No, he's gonna try to fight this, but the state. Where does he even get these? When was the last time he had an oracle over here? The stasis is huge, but the pylon! Oh no! The Artosis pylon depowers every single cannon and every single battery, and that singular pylon might depower Stats' chances. He's clearly scrambling. The Tempests are flying over spore crawlers. He's lost all his shields, but there's still so many Tempests. Oh my god, the +3 Corruptors are absolutely annihilating the Tempests. But there's not much anti-air left. Oh, a huge fungal. Massive damage. But there's no detection because he killed the lair. He's chasing down. He has to rebuild a lair to build spores or to build overseers. Dark is chewing through bases, but Stats is going for the kill right now. He's down to as many workers as he started with. The Broodlords, the Ultras on the other side. But there's nothing left to fight. The Broodlords are dead. The Lurker Den, dead on arrival. The Tempests are still intact. They've taken terrible, terrible damage. Dark is going for a force field. And he doesn't have any Ravagers, but the Ultra just bashes through. Dark is going for an all-out knockout base trade. Oh no, that Lurker. There was an Overseer the whole time in the main. Oh, he recalls back. But is there detection? It doesn't matter. Stats! The Shield of Iron holds in one of the most hectic. GG. Dark is unable to throw the game into chaos well enough to stop Stats from stabilizing. Stats had 0 workers. And he was supplied, but it didn't matter. He killed the lair. He got rid of the detection. The Mothership ended up being the decisive factor in pretty much every game. Stats with a vengeance against Dark, defeating the final boss. Welcome back. Hopefully that made your day a little bit better. And if it didn't, now's a good time to unsubscribe, because that was indeed one of the best, closest, most exciting back and forth matches I've ever seen. So hopefully it did make your day a little bit better. Thank you for watching. If you got the means of motivation, be awesome to check out Patreon. But otherwise, oh yeah, the second channel for streams, the new balance patch stuff, and other things, you can find in the description. And also check it out, recommended, super helpful if you got more hours in the day. But otherwise, good luck, have fun. I'll see you next time. Very excited to show off more stats as well, as it looks like we'll be seeing it. But thank you for watching. Stay tuned.